introduce 4 industry leaders who can share their views on the next waves that can impact these basic needs in this era of convergence. Wendy Mars from Cisco on communications and digital transformation. Lip Tan from Cadence on semiconductor, cloud infrastructure, as well as venture investment. Lars Reger from NXP on automotive, industry 4.0, and security. And Maurice Levy from Publicis on entertainment and media. Wendy, great to meet you. And as Cisco's technology business leader, I saw you led the data center and virtualization teams for many years. We are all living in this area of cloud, data, as well as in AI. Can you give us your perspective of these domains? How do you see people's wish for the always-on high-bandwidth communication is happening? And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the opportunities that you see?
Well, thank you, Young, and it's a pleasure to meet you and to be here with the rest of the panel. You know, it's going to be a fantastic conversation, I'm sure, for us all today. And if I look from a technology and an innovation standpoint, you know, the demand for always-on, highly available, secure connectivity has always been there, but now it's greater than ever before as a result of, you know, what we've gone through and are going through with COVID-19. And, you know, if we look at the reach from a connectivity standpoint for individuals, as we're, you know, a lot of us are still working remotely, and companies may or may not be back in an office environment. So being able for companies to deal with that hybrid situation is not straightforward. The nature of work, of course, is changing significantly, and how companies think through that. And if you look at the way in which information will be consumed and the acceleration of cloud has been very interesting as well. And, you know, if you think of be that private cloud, public cloud, hybrid situations, and for organizations to be able to deal with all of those different variants. And, you know, you mentioned AI as well, and machine learning, all those different pieces that are talked about in the industry today. And how can we translate that amazing, cool innovation into business critical capability that will help organizations to deliver the outcomes that they need to serve to their users and their community overall. So it's exciting times, and the demand for secure, highly available connectivity is greater than ever before.
Wendy, I hear open with COVID-19, digital transformation is fundamental to survival and thrival of organizations. What are some great examples of digital transformation that you saw that you can share with the audience that can help us to think about and how one can be able to prepare and change? I believe digital transformation is happening not as a talk, but it is happening because now if you don't, you cannot survive, you cannot thrive going forward.
You know, if I think about it, Young, from a digital transformation standpoint, there's a couple of observations I would make. So I think some industries that we've seen across the world that have maybe been a little bit slower to adopt digitization in their businesses and environments have accelerated, and they've accelerated because they've needed to as a result of the COVID-19 situation. So some examples of those would be education. You know, as we've had remote learning has been accelerated within schools, universities, and different environments there. So being able to make sure that that content is there, highly available, and we have the digital skills and capabilities of the trainers to be able to deliver that content in an engaging manner, and the ability of the students to be able to receive that. I would also say in healthcare, as well, as we look at the acceleration that has happened of being able to have remote diagnosis by a doctor or nurse in an environment to be able to use the technology to capture that. And if we think about as that accelerates with data lakes of information around patient conditions and symptoms, and being able to use big data to analyze, to get to root cause analysis rapidly around the prognosis of situations there, I think it's just the beginning for those two industries, you know, and how we will see them accelerate over time. And the third one I would call out would be government. So if we look across the world, some governments have been highly digitized for a number of years, and some have been less so. So it's introduced the ability now for governments to start to accelerate how they use technology themselves within their own environments, which I think will bring some exciting innovation for us all as citizens in the countries in which we live across the world.
Ripu, we've been a friend for a long time and co-investors. You are prolific investors through World and International and a personal level. In fact, together, we are involved in creating 9 unicorns from Havana Labs, Samba Nova, to recent IPO in biotech space, Berkeley Life. Can you give us your perspective of the global venture capital space today?
Yeah, first of all, Yang, thank you so much. And I really treasure our friendship. And it's a very good question. And I think clearly this is a challenging time for all of us. And many of us are working from home. And clearly I see a couple of great opportunity. One is the 5 generation of waves. I call it the generation waves. And that is 5G, the autonomous driving, industrial IoT or industrial 4.0, and then the hyperscale data center, and then also clearly the AI machine learning at the center of that. So I think that's a big opportunity, the big driver for all the development in the industry. And then secondly is I call it the data centric era. And it's all about data. And so how do you collect the data? How do you process the data? And like Havana, Samba Nova, we talk about is doing the AI machine learning on the data and then the big data training or inference. And that's a great opportunity. And then the other part is how do you store the data? The new material or new memory to store the data. And then or the hyperscale, the industry standard of non-volatile memory is the way to go. HBM, the way to go. And then the other part is, how do you do the data analytics? And that's where how do you analyze the data in a very proactive way so that make use of the data to be useful. And then finally, how do you transmit the data in the high-speed connectivity, like the SerDes, high-speed SerDes, and also some of these Ethernet switch that, from 12.8 to 25.6 to 51.2 terabit per second switch. So I think those are kind of exciting for me, and there's a lot of opportunity to invest, and I'm excited about this whole opportunity in the venture capital side.
What are some of the exciting space that you are following? How do you see global start opportunities and challenges? Does COVID-19 impacting investment climate, or does it accelerate opportunities to make even bigger impact? I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think this COVID-19 pandemic, actually some industry get hurt. Like for example, in the airline industry, the hotel industry, they are going to take a longer time to recover. But meanwhile, they create a lot of exciting new opportunity, and such as the online delivery and then e-commerce, and then also the cloud infrastructure, because everybody working from home and or using Zoom or WebEx or some of the high-speed connectivity. So I think those are fantastic time in terms of opportunity and business. So I think overall, I think globally, those are the great opportunity to create new innovation, create new startup, and that is fascinating to do.
Lars, good to see you again. So let's talk a little bit about 5G. I think 5G has been really critical part of innovation. Companies like Samsung, Cisco, as well as others pursuing. What are some of the innovations that 5G can bring in your view? And where are we in terms of evolution? What are some of the exciting applications where we are heading out to?
Yeah, Young, big thanks for that question. I mean, looking at 5G, you can have a hyped or a very careful, realistic view. And if I look at 5G, the first learning of the last 6 months is for sending a complete company into home office, I don't need 5G. Where I also don't need 5G is for autonomous driving. There are lots of myths around it. You need it for all of these type of topics. But where 5G will help us is making our current life much easier, much more seamless. So I'm talking at the moment to companies, and we internally are also discussing how do we come to a new post-COVID workplace of the future. And if I'm looking there just to my employees, what they, of course, in a lot, 2/3 of our employees would like to have is barrier-free working. So in other words, work anywhere and work anytime. And for that, increased mobility, just as a trend, and 5G is, of course, the tip of that iceberg. I can work at the best location for me at that time. And 5G will do the rest of that job. Other things, of course, where 5G will just make my life easier is in real-time applications. The reaction time of the data. That is the funny thing and the fantastic thing. It's not the bandwidth. I mean, bandwidth-wise, as I said prior, we have seen that 4G or fixed lines into houses will do the job for the home office. Even if my kids here are streaming videos like mad, while we are having our video call. But the magic is truly real-time applications. I know exactly what is happening. Here is within a couple of milliseconds in my other smart connected devices. And that will allow me a world that truly anticipates and automates what I'm doing. And that is in Industry 4.0 or smart traffic. That is, of course, a key innovation.
Lars, NXP has been a leader in the area of Industry 4.0. And I think often people are confused about what the Industry 4.0 is about. So if you could articulate a little bit about what your definition of Industry 4.0, for me, it's about putting together the interconnected cyber physical systems of traditional manufacturing to a new platform where it's connected, automated. With the data, one can be able to get a much better insight around our applications and manufacturing. But help us unpack some of these areas and give us your perspective on where we are going with Industry 4.0. And also, I want to hear your perspective on autonomous driving. Are we there yet? And I know I mentioned it'll take some time. I would love to get your perspective where we are, given that you're coming from the land of automobiles in Germany.
We are now at the edge because that all was enabled with, literally at the edge, that was enabled with cloud systems, data storage somewhere, and you have a connected data outlet, your mobile phone somewhere. That drives you into the on-demand world. And now at the edge, I mean, you have a lot of smart connected devices, the so-called edge devices, so the non-cloud devices, and that is a group of devices that is exploding. We forecast 75 billion of these smart connected devices in 2025. Figure is of course wrong, but it will be 50 billion or 100 billion devices. It will be huge. And NXP is center stage for these type of devices. We have a pretty broad portfolio with that. And these devices are sensing their environment, thinking of a smart advice. If they need auxiliary data, they get that data from the cloud, and they send this smart advice then to the arms and legs of that robot. And ideally in a safe and secure way that you can trust your device. Now, what that means is you are coming from the on-demand world into a world that anticipates and automates. This is Industry 4.0 in the manufacturing world. So you have your robots, they sense their environment, what's coming next. They get connected via the internet or via the cloud. You say, hey, here is a manufacturing good coming, and this is a car for Lars, and he wants to have this painted red. Okay, clear is the paint there, and so on. It is individually configurable, of course, customized for me, and done in a way that I optimally steer the supply chain and the robot to have, at a decent price, the manufacturing. By the way, this Industry 4.0, you could also translate to all other sorts of goods, including, and I'm thinking now a bit ahead, human beings. So you could build out of an Industry 4.0 manufacturing also a hospital 4.0. There it's not manufacturing goods of, let's say, car parts, but care for humans. Yeah, and so that the doctors and nurses can really concentrate on adding the part that an emotion-free robot cannot add. So really, really interesting technology to advance. Autonomous driving. Now, look, my parents, 80 plus years old at the moment, they want to enhance their mobility. And they need this motorway assistant to go in the 500 kilometers from their home to visit me. So 10 kilometers manual driving, my dad can do. Press a button, drive 480 kilometers on the motorway. The car does, and he is not worn out. At the end of that journey, the car notifies him and says, hey, now for the last 10 kilometers to Lars's house, you drive again manually. That is easy for him to do. The assistance systems are in place for these 2 times 10 kilometers, the rest autonomous. This is what industry can provide. But by and large, it is all the same trend, the world that anticipates and automates, and having these systems and make them trustworthy. So make sure that you don't get surprised by your own system.
Maurice, great to see you. Sorry that we couldn't get together at Viva Tech in 2020, maybe 2021, assuming COVID-19 is under control. Maurice, we've been working together Tech for Good initiatives driven by President Macron's initiative. It's been a great event where CEOs gathered together to discuss how we can be able to collaborate. And it's a process that we are all contributing. And I'm really happy to be a member of the CEO Council to work on this initiative. I know this is something that you also get involved as a key architect in driving this approach. It would be great if you can share your view of what this Tech for Good is all about. Why is it so important to all of us? And why is it important that CEOs should get involved and industry and government should collaborate in driving this important agenda?
Thank you, Jan, for having me. It's always a great pleasure to see you, and I'm sorry that it's not in person. The Tech for Good initiative is an initiative from President Macron. My role has been only to help making sure that this happens, and we are helped by McKinsey. And this is something which is generating a fantastic enthusiasm from key leaders from IBM, Uber, L'Oréal, Orange, some NGOs, and obviously Samsung and yourself. And I think that you have seen exactly how it is working, and your contribution has been key, as well as those of some other leaders. Over the last 2 years, and despite the COVID, or thanks also to the COVID, there has been a lot of achievement. I will remind you a few ones. First is on education. There has been a commitment to train 1 million students. I'm insisting, 1 million students. Second, on future of work, it is addressing the reskilling of the people. And there has been a lot of commitments in order to train and to help people to be reskilled in order to face the challenges of the new world. Third, diversity. It is about diversity and people coming from minorities, but also women, and gender equality, not only in terms of salaries and the way they are treated, but also there is a clear commitment. 30% of women should occupy the leading position in tech industry and in startups. 30%. This is a clear and strong commitment. Inclusiveness, reducing inequalities, empowering digitally the ecosystem, and at least 5 million people will be digitally empowered by 2022. Environment, how to decrease the footprint of energy, gas emission, in order to be aligned with the Paris Agreement. And this is something that has been taken very seriously, and there are a few decisions with impact immediately. And when you look at the COVID-19, it is both a huge problem and a great opportunity. A huge problem because we know that the contamination is creating a disruption in society, putting health of the people before everything, And in some countries, lockdowns have been absolutely terrible. But at the same time, a huge opportunity, because we have seen billions of people working remotely from home and working digitally. So what we have not been able to achieve during years trying to convince CEOs, organizations to use digital has been achieved like this in the blink of an eye by COVID-19, which is a great hope for the future.
Now it's time for some general questions for everybody in our panelists. Could you, all of you, give your perspective of how you're managing your organizations to survive and thrive? You know, the dependent geography obviously differs. In a place like Korea, we've been running organizations continuously. But as you know, in the United States, since middle of March, Silicon Valley has been locked up. So given all that, it's not that obvious also when we're going to come out of it. It'll be interesting to see and hear how you are managing your organizations and how you're in touch with them and how you're managing them, how do you motivate, how do you communicate in time like this?
Yeah, so culture is very important, and also our, global, we have 50 different sites and in the world, and then how do we communicate and then make sure that, set the right expectations. So like, for example, with my executive team, we review and revise the KPI, the kind of way the key objective we try to drive. And then in this environment, we have to reset some of these objectives so that make sure that they can deliver and achieve that. I think that's very important. So I think a lot of more communication with my team. Some of the executive team, I have 3-4 times a day. We just check in and then we just talk to each other. And then besides just on the project, on the work, we also want to be more personal, make sure that their family are okay and then their health is all right. And in some way, I get to know my colleague better, using the Zoom and WebEx, and then so that we can be a little bit, get to know each other more. And then the other part is the culture of one team. And then I mentioned earlier how to work together. I think the biggest challenge is innovation. How do you work together in the innovation in this kind of environment, not able to get together in one room? And then the other part is very important is to reach out to customer a lot more. And I find the customer actually more available and to talk to you, and they are more willing to share some of their challenges so that we can work much closer to them. And then one key part of our cadence is diversity, and ESG is very important for us. And then we want to make sure that we get the best recruitment, and then we really push hard in terms of diversity, not only in gender, and also in the different race. And then so that we can really targeting some of the best to join us. And I strongly believe that diversity really bring out the best for the company and also for the community. And then, clearly the recent event is very disturbing to me. And then, so I share with my employees and what our culture, what are our priority, but not just saying in just email, but we really want to have the real action and programs to really drive that. And in fact, we even have the open forums to hear from employees, any other suggestion that they have. And then in terms of we can do a better job, and then we can adopt that. So I think overall, it's a challenging environment, but I think to do the best we can, and then to really drive one team, one culture, and then make sure that we're taking care of the employees and also our partner and customer.
Yeah, if I look for us now, with the linkage between culture and technology is greater than ever before. And for the culture for organizations, and thinking, how do you make sure that you stay hyper connected to your people whilst everyone is virtual? And it takes different types and styles of leadership to be able to do that. So, if we look for us within Cisco, we have all of our employees moved to mandatory work from home in mid-March. So when we did that and introduced that, and we can, as you mentioned, it's different by country, and across the world we'll continue to have to manage with these different situations. But what Cisco's done, you know, from Chuck Robbins, who's our CEO, along with his executive leadership team, he has run once a week what's called a check-in. So it is a meeting where all of the people in the company can connect via video using the technology and can listen and see our leadership, interestingly, in their own homes, of course, because everyone is remote. And you feel so connected to the most senior levels in the organization. And you're able to hear information around what is happening, get updates on different things, but also, maybe more importantly, able to ask questions as well. And those questions are responded to directly by those leaders as well. So that's certainly something that has been incredibly well received by our teams. Because if we look right now, you know, I know certainly for me, as I'm working at home, I've got no commute. I just need to walk across the hall to get into my home office. And you can end up with really long days. And making sure that you drive the right mental well-being and balance for yourself, but also for your teams is really, really important as well. So we've had a lot of focus on that to make sure that people feel supported and get the help that they need, because everyone's home setup is very different, of course. You know, some may be able to work at home very easily, and some may not have a dedicated space in order to be able to do that. And so being mindful of that is really, really important. And when, you know, we ask our people, how are you? You're asking because you really want to know, and you're staying really connected to them, and you care. And I think some of those things will be important for us to continue with throughout the rest of the situation with COVID-19, but also after that, you know, when we come through it.
What we have done also differently is maybe three things. The first one is that we have communicated daily and giving daily in each country an information. Second aspect is that the CEO of the company has decided to do every Sunday a small movie, few minutes, to give the highlights of the weeks and to give some clear direction on how to protect our people, our clients, and making sure that we avoid to spend money outside the group in order to protect also the jobs. Last but not least, we have organized Zoom, Teams meetings in order to make sure that every single day, everyone was working not alone, because in our industry, teamwork is essential, and people have worked together thanks to the solution that we have put in place, and also some strict rules that we have implemented.
And all of you, as well as organizers of this event, MK, are major partners for the Extreme Tech Challenge competition that we ran last year. It's something that I found as part of a nonprofit, Tech for Good. What are in your mind for top priorities that can impact humankind and our planet that you care about?
Yeah, Jung, what is very close to my DNA is, of course, what I had described prior, this world that anticipates and automates. Removing barriers, removing obstacles for every one of us, and let everyone participate in all chances that you could have on the planet. A different description for the word diversity, so to say. How do I help people who cannot drive themselves anymore? Autonomous driving. How do I bring education to developing countries? So how do I make sure that I remove those barriers, and how, of course, do I also enable to do this in a sustainable way and give everyone the ability to live in a great environment and seamlessly participate with these optimal conditions. The other thing is, of course, what is worrying me quite a bit at the moment is how do we work in a world that is seeing increasing localization, so from global to local tendencies again, where sudden political systems are shaping up that are going against each other, and how do I deal with that? I, as an R&D manager, how do I avoid that I develop for each political system again a solution, and therefore, for example, triple my R&D effort for a similar product. If I would have to do that, I'm just cutting my R&D speed by 3 down, and I cannot bring the benefits to society as efficiently as I can do that today. So that is worries that I have. And of course, well, last but not least, how do we make sure that we use all of that to overcome the barrier that this COVID pandemic is putting onto us? These are the things that we definitely have to address, and there the XDC challenge is, of course, a fantastic breeding ground for great ideas, great startups, and they are very inspiring people. So that energizes me a lot.
First of all, I must say that I have been impressed not only by the fact that you have decided to co-found this event, by the success that you have had in gathering some of the big names of the industry, as well as convincing numerous startups to participate. And the latest results are absolutely staggering. When you look at the issues that we have to face and the fact that the 17 SDGs from the UN are paramount to the future of our society, I think that using the XTC challenge to convince startups to put their ideas, their passion, their imagination at work for solving those problems is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations for having done this. I think that the startups have plenty of ideas. There is an energy that is far superior to what we see in large corporations. And these youngsters who are facing all those issues are really committed to change the world. So for me, the XTC Challenge is one of the greatest initiatives that we have seen in the latest years. And I'm looking forward to the next edition, considering that, yes, we definitely need to see some great startups contributing. Bravo.
One more question to Croge. Let's go around the room and answer in just a few sentences. If you could give one piece of advice to tech leaders and entrepreneurs looking to benefit from post-COVID-19 readiness, what would that be?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Yang for inviting me, and also thanks for the fellow panelists and to discuss on these very relevant topics for today. And clearly, the advice I would give is, first of all, continue to do the innovation and to drive technology for better life and better world, and also for our next generations. And then the other part is also responsible for all of us, and to also address the social impact and also the diversity of the world, and so that we have a more harmonized place to work, and then do well while doing good. And that's important for all of us.
Well, firstly, thank you, Young, for, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here, with all of my colleagues and on the panel today. And if I look about that one piece of advice, I think when you go through an incredibly challenging time with people in different environments across the world, as we have and we are now with COVID-19, that principle of building of trust is incredibly important. So trust with customers, trust with partners, trust with colleagues. And if I look now, if we've all got a greater sense of trust with innovation, technology, and with each other as organizations, and building on that now and keeping that strength of bond is critical. So I would say that to all technology organizations, but to different companies that are out there and independent of the world in which you're operating. And trust is foundation, as a basis of a relationship, and then to grow that.
We have to demystify what we are doing. It is not all black hat hackers, crazy guys, and so on. When we talk about crypto and security, this type of kind. It is also not the case that from next year onwards, all our systems are fully autonomous and more emotional and more intelligent than most of the human beings. That is not true. Nevertheless, most of our tiny little systems will carry learning algorithms and will have AI and some sort of machine learning on board, just to do better detection, for example. So these explanations, opening the doors for others to play with our solutions, that is of the essence.
Today, and the COVID is here to tell us, you need to be serious. You need to be serious about this. And there are a few things that we need absolutely to do all together. One, we need to be serious about transformation. We need to be frugal, to stop waste, to limit carbon emission, to reduce plastic usage, to transform the organization and to make it more human. Even if there is more technology, and maybe because there is more technology, we have to be more human. And last but not least, we must be digital, digital, digital. Transformation is not a word, it's not an empty concept, it's not decoration because you will put some screens in an organization, you believe that yes, we have transformed, or because you are using Zoom. No, no. Transformation is deep in the organization, and what I'm telling you is only one word: be serious.
This was a great discussion, and thanks to the panelists for participating today. As always, I appreciate MK hosting annual event to expand our world knowledge and extend our conversations. We wish you a safe and healthy event. Thank you.